tax freight train is bearing down on your retirement. To protect yourself, you'll have to harness the power of zero.
Welcome to the Power of Zero show. This is your host, David McKnight. I'm grateful that you took some time out of your schedule to join me. As you know, best-selling author of The Power of Zero, A Look Before You Leap, and most recently, The Volatility Shield, which can be bought on Amazon. Got bulk discounts, will be coming soon, probably within about 2 weeks. Very, very excited for the guest that we have today. His name is Doug Orchard, and he is the producer and the director of the documentary that we filmed recently over the course of 2018, entitled The Power of Zero, The Tax Train is Coming. So, Doug, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you very much, David. It's great to be here.
Why don't we start off? Tell us a little bit about yourself. When did you get into movie making? What movies have you filmed? And just give us a little feel for what you're all about.
Yeah, well, the first time I ever did my own movie, Doug Orchard Films, started in 2013. I had done The Truth About Pandemic Flu in 2009 with Tommy Thompson with the CDC and the FDA. But after I watched what happened with the aftermath of 2008, I started becoming more interested in producing films that had the potential to move the needle for society. So what interested me was ultimately how it relates to our national debt. Every film I've ever made since then, from Revenue Reserve, which looked at the impact of bad commercial loans that ultimately gets bailed out by our government. That's what brought down the economy in 2008. After that, I did The Motivation Factor that linked exercise and traditional classical physical education, how it relates to productivity at work and unity as a country, and ultimately it demonstrated the entire $20 trillion of national debt is a consequence of the unneeded portion of spending in healthcare at the federal level. Then I did a film called Fasting that looked at all the different facets of that practice right now, fasting and its impact on cost of healthcare. And that brought me up to The Power of Zero. What interested me here, again, was just doing a film that was about the national debt itself. Sometimes you feel like the audience isn't listening. So this was a wake-up call to really show here's where we're at.
Yeah, that's a good summary. So you and I have talked about this before, but David Walker, former Comptroller General of the federal government, and I believe 2009, produced a fairly landmark movie entitled IOUSA. A lot of our listeners will have seen it. It almost won an Oscar. In fact, it came in second, I believe, to a movie called Man on the Wire. And he really went into a lot on the national debt, what we're facing from a fiscal, the challenges we're facing from a fiscal perspective as a country, why that spells bad news for people who are hoping to pay less taxes in retirement. Why did we need another movie about the national debt? Why did we need another movie, and why is this movie different in terms of how it affects Americans?
Right. And first off, I will tell you, I watched that film when it came out, and I was super excited because David Walker is the person who got me interested in this topic back in 2003, 2004. I was traveling across the desert, listening to him on NPR. It was some type of radio thing that was coming out from the University of Las Vegas as I'm going across the Mojave. It's the only thing that came in on AM radio. And that was the first time I heard where we were at that time, was when he was the U.S. Comptroller General, and he was saying how he couldn't get an audience with President Bush at the time. And it would shock me. And I watched that topic as it came through. And so I was super excited when that film came out, and I tried to share it and tell everyone they needed to watch this film. And was frustrated, like he was, since I've talked to him and so many, that it didn't get a greater audience. Even though, yes, you were right, it almost got an Academy Award and all these things that almost happened, the bottom line is it didn't happen. So films have a lifespan. We are so much of in the moment that there really isn't a situation where you can resurrect that film right now and say, hey, everyone, this is a seriously important topic. We need to do this all over again. You really need to take another look at this. And so in doing another film on the topic, what was going to be different? What I looked at was the message itself. Is there a way to communicate with today's audience that we can get them to listen? Where that was a great education piece, this was more of showing where we are today, right now. And by the way, the numbers have changed a lot since that film came out, right? I mean, the debt doubled and all kinds of things happened.
Right.
And that was a warning cry of what would happen if we don't respond. And then we didn't respond. So what now? Well, see, it's really a different film today that you make than you would have in 2009. And the other thing is, who's the audience? What was appealing to me, David, is when we talked, is I saw a way for distribution to take place by financial advisors who are already talking to the right target demographic audience. Those people who are ideally baby boomers, who are the people who are putting the people in office right now. They're the people with money, they're the people with the votes. That's your largest demographic. That's the group we're trying to reach. And it's very difficult to reach a wide audience today in any fashion because we're so siloed in how people watch their media. And so this created an opportunity to get a very important message out that was not happening because we were talking about the debt in 2009. And what's super interesting is all that conversation really, when we started filming, nobody was talking about the debt. Like it had stopped.
Right.
And so it needed to happen. There needed to be a fresh movie. But what was super different about this one was it wasn't, hey, the sky's falling if we don't do this. It was, okay, we didn't do anything. The sky's falling. How are we going to protect ourselves when stuff starts falling on our head? So this film was about how do you protect yourself ultimately.
Sure. You know,
and I think that's what's different.
Yeah, the vast irony here is, and you and I both know this, that David Walker, when he resigned as the Comptroller General in 2008, he started barnstorming across the country. 60 Minutes said it's like an Old Testament prophet trying to raise a warning cry to whoever would listen. And so he wrote a book. He made this movie. He was running around the country like his hair was on fire. And he was really making some waves. And back then, the great irony I'm pointing to here is that there was only, I think, about $10 trillion of debt at that time. And he was making a big deal. And he made a movie that, like I said, almost won an Academy Award. And now we're almost 10 years further down the road. The debt is more than double it was back then. And it's just radio silence from just about everyone. And so that was the great irony here. And you know, you've got 78 million baby boomers who are marching into a future where tax rates, given these fiscal realities, are likely to be so much higher than they are today. And one of the great takeaways from this movie is that, hey, if you're planning on retiring sometime in the next 10 years and you're going to live a 35-year retirement, to go into that retirement and think like what financial gurus have told you in the past is true, that tax rates are going to be lower during your retirement than they were during your working years, is just it's just a pipe dream. And I think that one of the strengths of this movie is it not only raises your awareness about what's happening with the fiscal situation of our country, but it's also telling exactly what you can do about it. So that for me was also a really great takeaway. So tell me a little bit. There's a lot of really interesting experts in this movie. From David Walker, he plays a very prominent role, to Tom McClintock, a congressman. He's on the Republican Budget Committee out of California. He's actually in your former district, from what I understand. He makes some very interesting, somewhat apocalyptic comments about our fiscal path, to former Secretary of State George Shultz, the governor of Utah, Gary Herbert, a lot of really interesting people from our industry, Van Miller, Tom Hegna. David Walker is also very prominent in our industry. You're able to get a hold of all of these really impressive people, prestigious people in academia all across the country. Larry Kotlikoff, one of the most foremost experts on what we call fiscal gap accounting. How did you pull this off? Tell us a little bit about the process of getting people into your movie.
Right. Well, first off, let's talk about what we were up against. It was a topic that nobody was talking about and no one was making a movie about. And in today's industry, where if you go look on Netflix of how many films are on food, right, on diets,
right,
I mean, people are not afraid to make multiple movies on the same topic month after month.
Right.
And yet there was nothing about the debt. So who would even want to do that? And two, how do you get these people in the film especially after an Inside Job came out that was narrated by Matt Damon back in 2009, where no economist, after what happened to the economist that was profiled at Harvard, wanted to ever be in a documentary again. This is per Dr. Eckenbaum there in Chicago at Northwestern. I remember when I called him because I was told he absolutely had to be in the movie. He was kind of a centrist, an economist, well-respected internationally. He was a must-have. His ability to communicate and really who he was and what he was doing.
He's terrific.
I called him and he told me, what I just said to you, that no economist has got into a documentary and won't. And I said, I'm not trying to pull the wool over anyone's eye. So let's do this. Why don't I make the entire movie and I will sign a document with you right now stating that I will edit you completely out of the film if you're not completely satisfied at the end of the film. And that really surprised him because nobody does that. Like no one does that. And by the way, you can only do that for like one person.
Right.
Because if they pull out, it's really hard to have a film after that and cross-editing. But it was great to get him in. And then with him, I used him as a leverage point to get another and kind of went through the process. And it really became one person referring the next after they met me and felt like, yes, this person's actually a truthful individual. He has pretty noble interest at heart of what he's trying to accomplish.
Right.
So let's support him. And then someone like Dr. Kotlikoff, I just called his cell phone and told him who I was. He looked me up. I caught him at a kind of a busy moment. He was just about ready to leave the country for a short time. And we decided right when he came back, I would meet him there in Boston and I'd film him. So we did. And as I'm filming him, I'd asked him, has he ever been an executive producer of a movie before? And what I really was interested for that position was help getting other economists in the movie. And because he had done so much work and had over 1,000 economists already subscribed, and backing up the legislation approach he had done before, which is profiled in the film, he agreed to do that. And I was able to CC him, inviting from a large list of people he said would probably do it. And that's how we got George Shultz. I mean, I emailed George Shultz, CCing Dr. Kotlikoff, saying, Dr. Kotlikoff, CC'd above, asked me to reach out to you. He's the executive producer of this movie that I'm directing, and we want you in it, blah, blah, blah. And then everyone started saying yes after that.
Yeah, once you get George Shultz, George Shultz is as big a name as you get. A lot of people don't realize that George Shultz is one of the foremost. He's one of the brightest economists in the country. Most people think, well, he was Secretary of State. He served all these cabinet positions over, in several different administrations. Few people realize that he was this incredible economic mind, and I think that gets borne out in this movie.
Oh yeah. Dean of Chicago Business School.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been everything. By the way, a physical specimen. He looks so strong at, how old was he? 94?
He was 94.
Anyway,
right? 94, 95.
Yeah, when I was filming it, he looked like he could pick up the desk and throw it. I mean, it was really impressive and still working. He had worked from 8:30 that morning. I was filming at 2:30 that afternoon, and he hadn't left. He had been coming in and out of meetings, writing, and
And you may have gotten to him before this Bad Blood Elizabeth Holmes scandal. I'm not sure if you know much about that, but he was on the board of directors for, I can't remember the company that was manufacturing these blood test kits, and Elizabeth Holmes. It had a market cap at one point of $10 billion, and he was on the board of directors. And then the whole thing came crashing down because apparently they were claiming things that their machines could do that they were not able to do. So I think that it was probably good timing that you were able to get to George before that whole thing came down, because he may have been a little bit more gun shy to do documentaries at that point.
Yeah, our timing was good. It was before that whole thing. Came out.
Very interesting. Yeah. So you interview I was in on a lot of those interviews, and I certainly had my own feelings about this. But for you, who was the most interesting, compelling figure? I actually get feedback from advisors and people in the public all the time. Hey, this guy was the most interesting and most compelling and really made the movie for me. What are your thoughts about that?
There's two people that stand out to me, and I know that you asked for one. It would be Martin Eckenbaum, the professor there in Chicago, and then my congressman at the time, Tom McClintock, for opposite reasons. Dr. Eckenbaum is, again, a centrist, middle of the road, economist, extremely well respected by everybody. Everything he said has come true. I mean, exactly laid out.
Yeah.
From the Trump tax cuts will not increase productivity. We're not going to get the gains we thought. And it was interesting, as the film was starting to come out, you're seeing people say, hey, look, we're getting more. And then that just fizzled all the way out. It has all fizzled out. And he was dead on. He was right on. And it had to do with math. And so what was interesting to me is how badly we are off, talking to a centrist as it relates to pensions, which wasn't in the movie. I mean, we couldn't put it all in,
right?
But that's just crazy if you add that to
the unfunded obligation for pensions, right?
That alone. And then when he talks about our national debt problem, and he just said, look, I don't care how you look at this problem, taxes are going up. And they're just going up. Now, we could argue about how much, but they're going up. Like there was no room other than up.
Yep. That
was going to happen. And I found it so compelling personally while I was sitting there interviewing him, because usually, and I'm a pretty good guy I've done thousands of interviews. You know, you kind of know when someone's, telling a story or they're just exaggerating. Right. But there was none of that here. This individual mathematically laid out that we're going to have higher taxes. This is it. We're at the lowest moment in our history. And Tom McClintock's the one that freaked me out the most. No question. He first off, I asked him what happens behind the magic curtain when, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. What drives the conversation when the media is not there? There's no microphone sitting there. What drives the discussion between each other, the politicians? And he said, honestly, since he's been there, and he's been there quite a while, it's only been what's ever been covered on the nightly news for the, 2 days leading up to that moment. And that discouraged me, but also I saw an opportunity that if we could rebuild this dialogue in our nation about the national debt, that there is a pathway that this would once again be discussed by the politicians. But if we can't raise this issue, if we cannot make this on the news and back in the dialogue, it will not come up until we hit a crisis moment. And so ultimately, I saw an opportunity, but I also, just kind of being reality 101, I think that this is going to eventually come to a pretty painful spot for us as a country.
Yeah, Tom McClintock, I thought was very compelling. He was actually my wife's very favorite expert in the movie. He just had such a firm grasp on all the numbers. And of all the experts, I think he was the one that was really able to articulate mathematically what's going wrong here in terms of the increase in spending relative to the increase in our GDP. These numbers are going the wrong direction. He talked about the sovereign debt crisis. The sovereign debt crisis says, look, we may be able to handle this issue so long as countries continue to loan us money. However, there comes a point in time when countries will stop loaning us money because they don't believe that we'll have the ability to pay it back. And when that happens, you really start to run out of this. Another one was Alan Eichenbaum, who I thought was very impressive, who's sort of Larry Kotlikoff's sort of partner and ideological soulmate. He talked about how you can't print your way out of this problem. You can't just print money to solve the issue, because a lot of these federal programs that they're required to pay by law, like Social Security and Medicare, they're all pegged to inflation. And if you print money, inflation goes up, and then the cost of these programs grow up. So they go up commensurately. So you really haven't solved the problem. So you say, okay, if you can't borrow your way out, you can't print your way out, what is the remaining option? And that's why, looking at all of these same numbers and the same data, all of these experts seem to be singing the same song, which is tax rates in the future have to be dramatically higher than they are today. So great. What did you? I think both you and I knew a fair amount about this subject going into the movie. Was there anything that you learned that was surprising or scary or that sort of knocked you out of your seat?
Yeah, well, for one, I saw what the real numbers were as it relates to what happens if we raise taxes. What's it really going to do for us? And it's not going to do that much. But at the same time, I saw that if we raise taxes, it's very clear that this is a perception problem to kind of keep those plates spinning.
Yeah.
And that they're going to have to raise taxes to show that we're being fiscally responsible. That we're doing some draconian measures. We're going to do something to balance our budget. We're making an effort, and then everyone's going to smile, and it'll be business as usual, and it'll kick the can down the road. And it was clear that everybody felt like we're just going to kick that can down the road until a crisis really happens. We're going to try to just push it, just keep pushing it. So what scared me personally, because my income's going up and up, and I'm growing as a filmmaker. I'm kind of hitting that moment where I'm starting to pay a lot more.
Yeah.
And I could see at the wrong moment I'm going to be paying the highest taxes, and it's really coming. Like, there is no scenario that I see right now that taxes aren't going to go up a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. and that I'm an independent person. But I'm fiscally very responsible and believe in being conservative. And although I see a lot of fraud and a lot of other places we can make these cuts, I can't see them playing out right now at all.
Yeah.
So what freaked me out is we're going to see taxes go up a lot, and we're probably going to have some hard moments in front of us. Not unlike the United States Civil War, where we saw a problem steaming, it's getting worse and worse and worse. And what did we end up doing? A million plus people die. I mean, it couldn't have been worse the way we ended up dealing with it. And, we have some of that. And in making this film, David, it was difficult to edit this in a way that we didn't go too far.
Right.
I didn't want this film to be so doom and gloom that people decided to throw their hands up, just spend all their money right now and, go hang out at the beach until, Armageddon. So what I was more interested in is helping people understand that they've got to protect themselves, that it will get ugly, but it may not be, because who knows, how it really will play out. We just know that taxes are going to go up. That we know.
Yeah, and my big takeaway was, I spent 4 years prior to the filming of this movie telling financial advisors, I've done 70 presentations per year roughly for the last 4 years, mostly to financial advisors and their clients. And I've been telling that based on the data that I've studied that taxes are going to have to go up. But it was sort of a nebulous statement. David Walker once used the D word, which is double, that taxes would double. So it's one thing to read some things, and it's quite a different thing to go interview the people that have their finger on the pulse of the national economy, and they know the numbers, they've studied the numbers, they know them backward and forward. And once you have a chance to really pick their brain and get their true opinion on the issue, boy, it's really sobering to say, okay, it's not just rhetoric. It's not just a political talking point. These are real numbers coming from people that don't have a dog in the race. They just want the best for our country. And they're saying, look, you either have to double taxes, reduce spending by half, or some combination of two. But really, when you get right down to brass tacks, it's probably going to be raising taxes, and probably in the next 10 years. That was what was really eye-opening for me, is I've been telling people this, and they were able to back up everything that I've always thought and believed with really stark, cold numbers. And that was really, really very interesting for me.
There were quite a few that felt like it was too late already. Like, it's happening. It's inevitable.
Right.
There were some that were still optimistic that said we could change it around. George Shultz and Tom McClintock both were saying, hey, we could still do this. We could, and for what they're talking about, if they had their way, it probably could work. But politically, looking out there right now and seeing that instead of anything like what they're talking about, we were talking about giving away more free goodies, and that's the big drive.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between when IOUSA came out in 2009 and this film coming out right now is that was the early part of the Great Recession, and we've been enjoying this great boom ever since. So we are at a moment right now where it would be super easy to be fiscally responsible and look at what we are doing right now. It's the worst fiscal performance as far as, any kind of responsibility goes. Historically, in the history of the United States, we've never had a moment like this. According to Dr. Eckenbaum, all right, we've never done this kind of deficit spending in peacetime, prosperity, with the lowest unemployment in 50 years. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the big discussion is we got to keep interest rates so low and all this. We got to keep everything pumping along. There is no concern about this topic right now.
Yeah.
So the day of reckoning is coming.
Yeah.
It's going to be painful. And so we've got to get a message out. And so I think this is a really good idea. I like what this film's message is. And the other thing is, for those who watch it, it's super interesting to see their response.
Oh, yeah.
Including the economists in this movie, all telling me, they all said, I got to make some changes.
Right. Yeah, even David Walker, he just said that he wanted to take a closer look at doing some things differently. And major politicians in this film said that to me after watching it. And David Walker has written a book on retirement planning, and I think David Walker recognizes that taxes are on sale given the 2018 tax cuts, and that every day that goes by where you fail to take advantage of historically low tax rates is a missed opportunity. Now, the other thing that, before we get into how people can watch the movie and how it's being distributed that makes it so unique, I wanted to make one final point on Larry Kotlikoff and his message about the fiscal gap accounting. And just for people who don't understand that, fiscal gap accounting basically says, let's measure the difference between what we've promised to deliver, what we're required to deliver by law, and what we've actually have in the bank, what we can afford to deliver. And there's a gap there. It's called a fiscal gap. And he said that in every country in the world, that gap needs to go on the country's balance sheet as a liability. In fact, fiscal gap accounting is what all of the major countries in the world have adopted. The 20 Nobel laureates in our country have made the case that we should adopt it. They're all on board. And there's over 1,000 economists that have said that this is the way you should do it. So what he basically says is, look, our publicly stated debt is $22 trillion, which doesn't seem like a big deal relative to our GDP. It's only 106% or so debt to GDP ratio, is actually worst after World War II. And the worst country in the world is Japan at 250% debt to GDP. He said that if we were measuring our debt to GDP in the same way that Japan measures their debt to GDP, we would be at 1,000%. In fact, his most recent projections say that our fiscal gap is 239 trillion, which puts us well over 1,000%. So that is startling. It's, I think, catching a lot of people off guard, that the only reason it doesn't look worse is because we simply do our accounting in a more convenient way so that politicians can get away with more stuff. So do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I do. I think this will be interesting for everyone. Remember, I mentioned Dr. Eckenbaum, Marty Eckenbaum, the centrist economist, how I signed an agreement with him that he got to watch the entire film and I'd edit it out if he wasn't happy with it. Like, all you got to say is, I want in or not want in. He emails me back, great film. He goes, I don't know if I question a little bit of some of Kotlikoff's numbers, but definitely include me in the film. And I emailed him back about Kotlikoff's numbers. I said, based on what numbers? He emails me back, good point. And the point is, Kotlikoff actually has done the research to look at that.
Yeah.
These are not what he did. Other economists have not done. And yet, Dr. Eckenbaum still wanted to be in the film with those statements. So whatever the numbers are, any of those numbers, we have a huge challenge.
Yeah.
A huge challenge. And we even have to go to the debt. We got $1 trillion. When you talk about nearly, in very shortly, $1 trillion deficit, how do you close that gap? And what happens when you have to? What happens when you're forced to close the gap just to keep the ability to keep borrowing money? And in all those scenarios, you're going to see your taxes.
Yeah, and Larry Kotlikoff said that it was Tom McClintock said the canary in the coal mine, which signals a potential sovereign debt crisis where people stop loaning us money. So we can't borrow. That option goes out the window. We can't borrow our way out of our problems anymore. He said it's when we start having trillion-dollar deficits. And we weren't at trillion-dollar deficits when this movie launched, but we hit trillion-dollar deficits within a couple of months of having launched the movie. So I thought that was very, very interesting timing. So talk a little bit about how the movie has been distributed up to this point. And then April 23rd is a very special date because that is the worldwide launch of this movie. So talk about the difference between what happened from first part of October when this launched sort of on a limited scope and what's changing on April 23rd.
Sure. So when you have a release of any movie, and this is a movie rated by the Motion Picture Association, so it follows all those rules, you have what's called a theatrical release, which happened starting October 8th. And went until through April 23rd, so a little over 6 months, or whatever that is. And then you have what's like a network release or a DVD and online streaming release. So that date for it to be available on DVD, Blu-ray, for the public to be able to rent it or buy it on iTunes and on Amazon and on Google Play and Real House and Vimeo and the basic platforms that are out there. That date is scheduled and has always been on for April the 23rd. So that's just right around the corner. Actually, it's already happened yesterday. So it's available now for the public to go access. And that's the difference between the two. And up until 2 days ago, it was playing in theaters by really an invitation only, what's called a limited theater viewing. There's a number of ways to do that. We used a distributor called Tug, and they're the largest distributor of their kind that had the widest access of theaters that would play the film, where any agent or anybody for that matter could host the film in their local theater. And what's changed now is, although it continues to be available in theaters, any agent or anyone can actually continue to do that. But now it's also available for educational or institutional business purposes in a private or commercial setting. So now agents, for example, could go to tug.com and actually sign up to show it in their local, if they have a large auditorium in their office, if they want to go to their local public library, they want to do it in a restaurant, they want to go to a hotel or whatever venue they want to do some community event in the park, they are able to obtain the license to show that in that setting through Tug. And that, of course, is considerably less costly than it ever was if they were trying to pre-buy out a theater,
sure,
for example. So that's available now. And it's the same place they went earlier. They just go to tug.com and they would select the education institution option as opposed to selecting the option to play it in theaters. And there's all kinds of more information when you go to taxtrain.com to show the film. There's tutorials that are new that are available there as well.
And that's tug.com, tugg.com. So that's a big development. It's no longer you have to buy out tickets from a movie theater. You can actually take this to a corporate setting, whatever venue you want. You can show this as long as you're willing to pay Tug the licensing requirement. There's also another interesting thing that you and I have discussed, and that only happens in one place, and that's realhouse.com, where financial advisors who want to expose this message, and really you and I've been trying to get the word out through financial advisors, because financial advisors might have 500 clients each. So I talked to 100 financial advisors and they're taking my message to 500 of their clients. It really helps spread the message quickly. But so the way that we've approached this is saying, let's put the message in the hands of financial advisors so they can get it to their clients. One interesting approach that you have made available is through Real House, and being able to send codes that can be sort of coupons, if you will, that can be cashed in by their clients. Can you talk a little bit about how that works?
At thetaxtrain.com, you'll simply go in, select the quantity of how many you want. You'll get emailed back to you an instruction that you can forward to the client, along with a receipt of what you did, and it will allow whatever quantity you wanted to buy, let's say 50, you'll get one code that you will send to 50 clients and say, please go follow this link and you'll be asked to use this code, and you'll be given a free online copy, streaming copy of The Power of Zero. And that's how it works.
So to be clear, if people want to order 50 or 100 viewings that can be used by their clients, they don't go to realhouse.com. They go to thetaxtrain.com, and they can get it all ordered off of there.
They have to, because what I'll have to do is go into the back end of Real House manually and actually create this custom code for them.
Okay.
And select and enter in how many copies they just purchased.
Gotcha. Okay.
Now, just so everyone knows, if they just wanted to give one copy, not bulk, but just one copy, you can go to Real House directly, type in The Power of Zero, it'll bring it up, and it will allow you to purchase one copy as a gift for somebody, and then you send that gift link off to them. So if you're interested in just buying one, go directly to Real House. But if you're interested in going to bulk and you want to buy in bulk and get the discount, then the way to do that is to go to thetaxtrain.com/shop, but just go to taxtrain.com and hit the shop button, and it'll appear, those options and instructions will appear there just like it did in addition to the Blu-rays.
All right. Well, very good, Doug. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule to be on the Power of Zero show. We're grateful for your contribution to this movie. I've gotten nothing but amazing feedback from people that have watched the movie. It's a great compliment, I believe, to the Power of Zero book. Of course, it has the same title, but just a different subtitle. And one thing I've noticed is that people will say, yeah, tax rates may or may not be higher in the future. Maybe you've overstayed your case. And what this movie does once and for all is it puts all of those arguments to rest. For those people, and I've had arguments with online with people from clarkhoward.com and the White Coat Investor and all these different places. I'm still waiting for Susie Horman to get a hold of me one of these days. But to put all of these arguments to rest, that we can print our way out of this and have 70s style inflation that's going to solve the problem. This movie, and just an incredible job on your part of explaining why none of those options will work. The most realistic possibility to be able to solve all of this is to raise taxes over the course of the next 10 years. We may not like that option, but we're quickly running out of any other options. And so that seems to be the one that is most likely going to be staring us in the face sometime in the next 10 years. So once again, Doug, thanks for all of your hard work. Where can they learn more about you and the next projects that you're working on?
They go to dougorchard.com, and I've got some really, really crazy, unfortunate messages that I'm going to be talking about as it relates to medical fraud.
Okay.
But the dougorchard.com is where they can follow me and see what films are coming out.
Well, we're excited to see what you have coming next. Again, thanks for being on the show. For those of you who are listening, thanks for spending time with us. Of course, please subscribe, and you can get an email every time we have a new podcast that comes out, which is every Wednesday of every week. And thanks for sharing a portion of your day with us. We will see you next week.